All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Nathan Foster with Marcotte Retirement Plans. Thank you for joining us today on the topic of the top 3 trends that we're seeing for 2019. A few housekeeping items before we start here. Your phone lines will be set to mute. If you have any questions, we request that you follow up with us after the presentation. This presentation will last approximately 45 minutes. Here with us today is Derek Bailey, a partner at Marcotte and one of our lead retirement plan consultants. Derek is a chartered retirement plan specialist, an accredited investment fiduciary, and has been in the industry for over a decade. He is currently the retirement plan advisor for plans ranging from $1 million to almost $200 million in assets. Derek, please take it away.
Thanks, Nathan. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on which time zone you're in. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day towards the busy end of the year and learning a little bit about the top trends that we see going into 2019 for retirement plans. So, again, as Nathan said, 30 to 45 minutes. I'll keep this pretty on track and on pace. But again, thank you for your time today. I know how valuable it is this time of year especially. So with that, let's kind of dive in. For those of you that don't know who Marcotte is, we're a firm based in Omaha, Nebraska. We handle really anything from employee benefits, retirement plan consulting, business owner liability insurance, HR consulting, wealth management, a whole vast majority of products and services that we can do. Today's topic is around retirement plans. Certainly, if you have other issues in your organization that you may need help at, we're a valuable resource. Reach out to us afterwards if you need to. Our retirement plan division is there in front of you. That team of people today manages about $1.7 billion in assets under influence, currently approaching about 80 different clients, and we have 4 full-time plan consultants. And one thing that I'll say just up front, what really makes us unique in this marketplace is this group of employees, of people, we are completely independent, meaning we do not have a certain carrier that we work with at all. But most importantly, everything that we do involves qualified retirement plans. So we're not also financial advisors that are trying to sell life insurance or IRAs and those types of things. All the work we do, 100% of our time is focused on retirement plans. So hopefully with that type of experience, I can pass on some good knowledge for you today. So, as we do with all of our presentations, always start with the basics when it comes to the 401k plans and the 403b plans out there. Number 1, always watch the funds. Perform an independent analysis at least once a year. I can't tell you how many times in the last year alone that I've came across an investment lineup that was monitored by a proprietary system of that provider, was not done independently, and amazingly all the funds look great. Go out, do the independent analysis, and truly get an unbiased opinion. Watch the fees. Every 3 to 4 years, you want to benchmark all your service providers. We are one of the very few firms out there that actually tell our clients that they have to benchmark our fees. Why? Well, if you make over $1,000 a year off of the retirement plan, paid from plan assets, so from participants' accounts, we are what's considered a covered service provider. We have to provide you with a 408b2 disclosure that says here's our services and here's our fee for that service. As your plan grows, part of what we do is go out and benchmark retirement plans to make sure that the record keepers and the administrators, their fees are reasonable. However, I cannot bench my own fees and say that they're great. So that's one thing that we tell our clients, you have to benchmark us as well. But something that you have to do, again, benchmark all your service providers every 3 to 4 years, every 3 to 5 years. Just make sure you document that process. And finally here, educate your participants at least once a year. Go in, offer an employee meeting, group meetings or one-on-one, however you want to do it. Document that you held a meeting. Document who's in attendance, just so you can keep track of when you're having your meetings, who shows up. What you want to avoid is the instance that somebody goes 10, 15 years working at your organization, never got enrolled to the retirement plan, and realizes they can't retire because they weren't saving. They come back and say, well, nobody ever told me about this. Well, no, we actually had meetings every year. Here's where you signed in. That's really what you want to do from a fiduciary standpoint. So watch the funds, watch the fees, educate your participants, understand and know who are the key fiduciaries to your plan, especially your advisor. This is one that we talk about consistently. Really, though, understand who is responsible to the retirement plan, who has skin in the game, essentially. And at the end of the day, document everything. Document is more important than the performance of the investments and the overall outcome of the plan. The courts have consistently said if you document properly and we can follow the actions that you took and come up with the same conclusion, you're probably going to be bulletproof. So what I often find, though, is when I ask for meeting minutes and I talk to somebody about their investment policy statement, how did you make this investment change? Why did you make this change? A lot of times it's the fallback of, well, somebody told us to do it and we just did it, and there's not that documentation. And if you have the documentation in place, that'll save you more times than not. So, as we look into 2019, what's my number one trend that I see taking place in the marketplace towards retirement plans? Number one, more fiduciary services. So let's start with the types of advisors out there, because this one's been around for a while, but I've started to see more and more advisors operating differently. Today, you have a broker out there. This is somebody that can solicit and sell a retirement plan, a 401k plan. However, as a broker, they have no fiduciary liability or responsibility to the plan, which does create a potential conflict of interest. Now, this comes in the form of if they make a recommendation to go to a different provider or maybe make a change on the investment side, they can or may make more money based upon that recommendation. And that's really where the conflict lies. Any advice given to you as a plan sponsor, you want to have that to be unbiased and conflict-free. If an advisor makes a recommendation or a broker makes a recommendation to move a product or move an investment, the first thing you always want to ask is, will you make more money because of this recommendation? If they do, that's a conflict. It needs to be avoided. That's a prohibited transaction. Another way an advisor can work is what's called as a 321 investment advisor. Under this category, that advisor acts as a fiduciary. It is put in writing. They do not have discretion over investments. So here you can see a 321 is called an ERISA 321 investment advisor. They are a co-fiduciary to the plan. They will bring you a process, make a recommendation on an investment or a change in service providers. That recommendation has to be approved by your investment committee and documented. The advisor cannot act on your behalf, so they do not have discretion. They're simply providing the process to monitor the investments or the service providers, providing a specific recommendation. And the big difference here, and I've seen this in the past through other firms, was a broker will come out and say, this investment doesn't score well on this system. Here's 2 or 3 other investments to choose from. Mr. or Mrs. Plan Sponsor, you have to make that choice. A 321 advisor, this type of a fiduciary, should say, this investment's not performing. Here's the reasons why. Here's 2 or 3 other options that I've considered, and here's my specific recommendation. Committee proceed with a vote. 2 big differences. However, in our world, I'm not going to lie, this is really confusing, and this is really down in the weeds on this part of it. The third type of an advisor works as what's called a 338 investment manager or 338 advisor. This is one that's been around for a long time as well. However, I see this becoming a really big trend going into 2019 and beyond because, in my experience, as our businesses grow, as we have more regulations and more responsibility, most plan sponsors don't want to have the investment liability or the responsibility to document that they had meetings each quarter or that they took care of the investment policy statement. So a 338 investment advisor, again, is a fiduciary in writing. They have discretion over the investments, which means they can make an investment change to the lineup. So as a 321, if the large cap growth fund we have is not performing well, I'll make a recommendation to the committee, replace the ABC large cap growth fund with the XYZ large cap growth fund, and here's why. Committee, go ahead and vote. As a 338 advisor, I can simply look at my system, determine the fund's underperforming based upon the metrics we use, And when the time is needed or necessary, make that change and notify the plan sponsor. Here's the change I made. Here's why. I still have to document everything and show due diligence and due cause of why that investment took place or that investment change took place. But really, you're outsourcing the responsibility and the liability to manage the investment process. That sounds good. Let's look at this as a visual, okay? So here's your liability towards the investments. And remember, as a plan sponsor, if you have the ability to make a decision over the investments, over plan assets, you are by action a fiduciary. A fiduciary is not a named title, it's by your function and your actions. So if you have the ability to make a change over the investments, you have a personal liability. How does it flow? Between a broker, a 321 advisor, or a 338 advisor, when you make that recommendation, your liability to a broker, or for the broker, there really isn't any. Because the broker is not considered a fiduciary to the plan, they're there just for suitability, not to provide investment recommendations. You share no liability with a broker. As a 321 advisor, you do share liability. Now, you still have some, and the advisor has some. It's that co-fiduciary arrangement where you both have skin in the game, you're both providing a process and working towards a common cause with no conflicts of interest. And really what the 338 advisor does is takes on the majority of the investment process. And I want to make this really clear because this is oftentimes a very confusing part in our industry. I always get asked, well, if I hire a 338 advisor, does that mean I'm not a fiduciary anymore? No, you're still a fiduciary, but your role and responsibility is reduced from being involved in investment committee meetings to really just looking annually, did my investment advisor do as they said? Did they have their quarterly meetings? Did they provide me minutes from those meetings? If they made a change, did it follow their IPS? That can all be taken care of in a quick, easy meeting. So you still have the duty to monitor your 338 advisor, but any investment changes that took place, that liability is now on the investment advisor and not the plan sponsor. But that sounds great. I always say the best 338 investment advisor was Bernie Madoff. Made all his own investment changes. So take it for what it's worth. If you hire a 338, you still need to monitor them and make sure that they're following a process. Fiduciary administrative services. Again, a part of the number one trend we're seeing was the outsource of fiduciary responsibility. So first was the advisory work, really boiling down to monitoring the investments and who has control and monitoring the investment lineup and making the investment recommendations and changes. I always say, as a business owner, why would you want the liability unless you are the investment expert? There are too many investments out there, and just having the low cost target date fund option does not mean your plan's bulletproof. Low cost does not mean good performing. It just means it's low managed, low maintenance. You still have to monitor all those types of investments. When it comes to I'd say a newer trend from what I'm seeing today is the ERISA 316 administration services. So, Derek, all these fun numbers, what do they mean? Section 316 really revolves around how do you handle the plan document, the day-to-day administration of the plan, the enrollments, the notices, all the dirty work as I look at it when it comes to the retirement plan. So what's the easy button? And this is what I'd see is probably one of the fastest forming trends for 2019 and going on, really around plan document maintenance, tracking the enrollment and eligibility, providing required notice delivery, approving any type of a distribution. So think of a quadro, a hardship, a loan. Anytime an employee comes to you and says, I need to have a loan on my plan, or I have a hardship request, as a plan sponsor, most of the time you'll have to approve that hardship and you'll have to collect the necessary documents. Everybody I know says, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be responsible to say yes or no to this. So what we see is really a key task is outsourcing this to a firm that can handle it under a fiduciary capacity that would take care of that sometimes often sticky decision with one of your better employees or maybe not a better employee that you have to tell them yes or no. It's not a fun situation. Getting involved with the payroll, making sure your contributions are going up there to the record keeper appropriately, that we're following the plan document, that we're hitting our guidelines and maximums and stopping where need be. But really one of the bigger ones that I see is the ability to prepare and co-sign the Form 5500. This is oftentimes the tax document that nobody likes to file or deal with. You see it once a year. Oftentimes it's prepared by your administrator and given back to you for signature, which means you have to go through and make sure everything's accurate because your name's on there. What I see with some of the firms I'm working with right now is these 316 administrators taking on all this responsibility under a fiduciary capacity, which means they would prepare that 5500 and then sign it on your behalf. You still see it, you make sure everything looks right, but they're going to sign their name to it, which really means at the end of the day, if something's wrong with that document, it's on them. They have to cut the check to make it right, not you. You've outsourced that work to them. They have to follow their service agreement and do their work. So this to me, when it comes to the administration of a retirement plan, that's where most shortfalls come in. We missed a contribution here. We did not get our annual fee disclosure sent out to everybody on time. We missed that. Maybe we didn't get the 5500 filed on time. I just saw this yesterday with somebody. It's little things like that really cause issues with the retirement plan. It's not so much the investments, as most investment advisors will tell you. It really is around the administration of the plan, because you want to keep the qualified status of the plan. And by not doing some of these items, you could jeopardize that status. Here's a laundry list of services that you can, in addition to what I just listed there. And if you are looking at a 316 fiduciary administrator, there's various forms of that out there. And so I just want to caution, if this is something that you are looking at, really take some time and understand what's being offered and what's available and at what cost. I've seen about 8 to 9 different types of programs that all claim they have ERISA 316 fiduciary services. You want to be able to go through and check mark the boxes that are most important to you to say, do you cover this and what's the cost? Because they're all different. Some, it could be as little as $1,000 a year. Others, I've seen as high as $20,000 a year to cover more than what's on this page, but I hope you get my point of not all services are the same. And just because somebody says they're a 316 or a 321 or a 338, it does not mean that they're the exact same as what you've seen before or dealt with before in the past. We are not an apples to apples world. We're an apples and oranges. What it looks like to you, and maybe some differences, and hopefully this slide illustrates that, comes down to, in most cases, as the 401k plan sponsor, you're kind of there in the middle to deal with your providers, your advisor, your record keeper, maybe you have a third-party administrator. You're kind of there in the middle to make sure everything's working well between everybody. Most of the liabilities falling on your shoulders. Under the, I would say, the newer model, where you have a 338 investment manager, investment advisor, an ERISA 316 administrator, really it's trying to make sure you can do your job well, that you're good at, and outsource the things that you maybe not be so good at, and have that done under the fiduciary capacity. And you really want your advisor and administrator working really well together because they're the key components to making sure the plan runs well. All right, so the big thing, going into 2019, one of the hot topics, you'll see this coming up a lot. I've seen from a lot of record keepers, a lot of administrators out there, really focusing on the outsourcing of fiduciary documents, fiduciary services. It just seems to be, in this world where everybody's so quick to sue, that why spend time and have that liability for something that's probably pretty easily outsourced at a reasonable cost. So, moving on. Number 2 trend for 2019, collective investment trusts. Collective investment trusts, or CITs, they have been around. This is nothing new. However, the utilization, the marketing of them will be greatly influence this year and going forward. A collective investment trust is nothing more than the same pooled assets as a mutual fund. However, they were built and delivered for institutional investors like retirement plans. They leverage the buying power of, and I'd say ease of administration of large assets. So most collective investment trusts historically were only available to investors that would have a $10 million position, a $50 million position. What they do is they offer, again, the exact same investment portfolio underneath, but because of their structure as a trust product and not a registered mutual fund, they can lower their expenses. So they lower the expense ratio. So that nasty number you see at the end of that ABC large cap growth fund, maybe 0.75, that's the expense ratio. Collective investment trusts, because of their product and their nature and what they're designed for, is the exact same investment you have today, but offered at a significantly lower cost. Not to be confused with a zero revenue share or the institutional shares. Collective investment trusts are only available to certain providers, as well as they're only available in 401k plans. How does that play out? This is an example of one of the investments we use consistently. You see at the top, this is the ClearBridge Large Cap Growth Fund. It scores a 9 on our system, the RPAG scorecard system. It scores a 9. And then I have two examples here. I'm showing you the institutional share class. This is what the typical advisor would show as this is the lowest share class you have access to. Expense ratio 0.68%, 68 basis points, with about 5 basis points of revenue share below it. 0.68, that's a good investment option. That's a very low cost. You're well under 1% for a very good performing investment option. That's great. Based upon my relationships that I have, that Marcotte has through some affiliations we have, I can offer that same investment option, but instead as an institutional share class, which is a mutual fund, a registered mutual fund, I can offer this as a collective investment trust under this R1 share class, which brings the expense ratio down from 0.68% down to 0.29%. Now, this is the exact same underlying investments. If they've purchased Apple or Netflix or whoever, that company still belongs in both of those share classes. But because of the collective investment platform, this is a significant windfall for your employees, your participants. This is a major cost reduction that's available. So where I see collective investment trust playing a role is typically in the past, they were used for plans that were well over $100 million. We're talking billion-dollar plans. Over time, they have come down. We now have access to certain products, certain sleeves for plans down to $1 million where we can offer this type of a solution. So this is something that we are doing a lot with here recently, but I see to be a much larger trend going into 2019 is the use of this, because we're truly just talking about the investment cost, not the record keeping, not the administration of the retirement plan, just the investment cost. In this case, ClearBridge was going to make 63 basis points. I took the 68, reduced the 5 basis points of revenue share down to 63. That's what they were making before to do their work. Going forward, they would make 29 under this scenario. While your record keeper, administrative advisor was still making the same, this is a significant reduction on the investment expense. So what you're seeing here is an institutional share class, which on the surface is very good. The retail share class for this mutual fund is probably 1.15. Institutional, good, collective investment trust, when available, in my opinion, significantly better. On to number 3. So the number 3 trend I see, so number 1, fiduciary outsourcing. Do what you do it well. If you don't like doing something, outsource it. That's the whole premise of a retirement plan and outsourcing those types of responsibilities. 2, collective investment trusts, a way to reduce your overall plan costs, put more money back in your participants' accounts, helping them get to retire on time. So, logically, we move on to a focused employee education program. No longer should your employee meetings be about group meetings and here's the performance of the stock markets over the last 72 years, and here's the big picture ideas going on. Employees today don't like to sit in group meetings. Now, they'll tell you they like to because they want to get out of working for a half an hour to an hour. What they want today is to be met at their level. Now, most retirement plans, based upon the vendor that you're working with, they'll have some tool, some resource that tracks plan health, that looks at, well, this is the number of employees on track to retire. If we change our strategy, we can get them up from 51% to 67%. But more and more, what we're finding is the group meetings are good for big general messages. Hey, we're changing providers, we're doing this, a message you want to get across to everybody that's rather generic in nature. And that meeting can be combined with your other benefits meeting. Here's how the plan works, here's what we're doing. But if you really want to engage your employees, you have to meet them at their level going forward. And the tools and the resources being developed today, I tell you, I see more money being spent in this area than any other area of record-keeping services. Really is engaging in the financial wellness. Why? Well, 1 in 3 Americans have not saved for retirement. 1/4 have less than $10,000 saved. 1 out of 5 cannot cover an emergency expense. And 31% have less than $500 in emergency savings. So the issue is, sure, we can have a big group meeting about the 401k plan, about the retirement plan, or as I call it, the graduation plan. But really the needs of our employees today go way beyond just retirement. It's how do I budget? How do I make sure I have money set aside? So their biggest concern isn't the retirement plan. It's, hey, that job down the street pays $0.25 more per hour. I'm going to go down there, get an extra $0.25 an hour. And in today's job market, we all know how tough it is across the country. Keeping your employees happy and educating them on their finances, showing them that there is a path that if they keep working here, doing their job, they will get to retire on time or graduate on time. That is becoming more and more beneficial than anything else. They don't care about the large cap growth fund that got changed out. They want to know, if I keep doing my job based upon my salary and income, will I have the option to graduate with dignity? Or am I forced to hope my employer keeps me on the payroll system because I can't afford to retire? And that's really what I look at it. You have 2 employees, both of them are age 65. They're near retirement. One of them wakes up in the morning and looks at their statement and says, you know what? I have enough money to retire today. I can do whatever I want. But I'm feeling great. I'm feeling good. I'm sharp. I love doing my job. You want that employee at your company. That is an asset to your company. They are well worth the money you spend on them. Versus the employee that wakes up and says, gosh, I haven't saved enough. I need to at least work, 2 or 3 more years. Do you think that's a valuable employee that's going to help your bottom line? Or is that, unfortunate to say, more of a liability where they're thinking more about their finances and not what they're doing on the job? Is that a work comp possible liability? Is it a health issue possible liability? Lots of things that you need to look at that when we set up retirement plans, we thought, well, that's the liability of the employee. As a plan sponsor, that's not my liability. They have a 401k plan, they have a 403b plan. This is up to them. That liability is being shifted back to the plan sponsor. If your employees can't retire on time and they continue working past retirement age, is that a valuable asset to the company, or is it something that you need to address today to help cover that expense, that liability? So there are numerous financial wellness programs out there. Initially, I wanted to list off a bunch of them, but apparently that looks like a recommendation. So I had to just put on here, evaluate the financial wellness programs that are out there. I would say today there's probably 40 to 50 different programs available that range from free to 6 figures a year. And we have evaluated probably 14 to 15 of them that we feel fit kind of our culture, what we believe here at Marcotte. So we know that not every company is the same. And every company is going to have their own unique needs. Maybe you have an employee workforce that's in their office the entire time. Maybe you have an employee workforce that's all throughout the country. Everybody's different. Everybody's unique. In this case, financial wellness programs it's not one's built for all. Find the one that meets your employees where they need to be met at. If it's on the road, I've seen some amazing technology being built that delivers a meeting to somebody's phone. Real time, allows for interaction over the phone in a group setting. If it's in the office space, we have seen programs being built that really walk employees through the basic needs, kind of a level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. They've really gamified the process. If you do these things, you've achieved level 1, move on to level 2. Setting up a budget, making sure you have life insurance and disability insurance. Did you complete all your benefit programs appropriately? Moving on to level 2, do you have an emergency savings set up, a secondary savings? How are you on track to retire? There's a lot of different things you can do. For a lot of people today, that's the training that they need that they've lacked in the past. So wellness programs, how I see them, 2 or 3, 4 years ago, I kind of thought there was a lot of fluff there. Our experience and what we have seen in the marketplace now is starting to lower healthcare costs, less wasted time on personal finances while they're at work. We used to talk about absenteeism. An employee had to leave, take care of a grandparent, go pay their bills, refinance their house, and that stuff still all goes on. But now it's presenteeism. A lot of times employees are at work physically, but mentally they're thinking about their bills. They're not doing their job. They're worried about their finances, worried about that collections notice that came in. So if we can put together a plan that says we're going to do all these things, or the employee's going to do these things, get past level 1, get to level 2, you see a more confident person coming to the workplace, you see a more valuable person coming to the workplace. That employee is less likely to turn over. Case in point, we implemented one of our programs into a client, and they had about a 90% participation rate in the 401k plan, which is good, but they had several people that just didn't feel it was right for them. They attended meetings. For whatever reason, they wouldn't sign up. After going through the financial wellness program and kind of helping them balance out what their paycheck looked like, what their budget looked like, how to pay off some other debt first, eventually they could start to participate in the retirement plan. And this is a plan that had a great match. So not only were they not saving, they were leaving money on the table. That's free money. So as we explain it to them more in that one-on-one setting, meeting them where they need to be met at, we took that plan, again, 90% participation is great, to now at 100%. Every employee that's eligible is participating in the plan. If they're happy, they will work there longer. So there's less turnover. And having that process in place really does solidify the fact that when they turn retirement age, they'll have the option. Now, they may change and move to a different career. That's going to happen. I understand that. But if we start preparing people today the way they should be across their entire career, we'll have a better workforce to deal with when that time comes. So those are really my top 3 trends I'm looking at for 2019. Start to outsource fiduciary services, administration services. If you don't want to be the investment expert, don't be one. Don't try and play one on TV either. If you don't have a process in place, or somebody at your office that really dives into the resource side of it, that they really get really excited about making sure the disclosures are sent out on time, that they're tracking all of the documentation side, outsource that. And then really engage in some type of a financial wellness program. That can be a caveat or carry over into your benefits side as well. Financial services and health side have really combined here lately, and a good financial wellness program will incorporate your other benefits, helping people understand, hey, if we have an HSA, here's how we can maximize both sides of that. Here's the investments in the HSA program. Are they compatible to the 401k plan? How should your participants be contributing to both of those? That's what a financial wellness program should do. Most of those 401k general meetings don't dive into both sides of the product, so there is a big difference in it. So will 2019 be a new year? If we look at what's changing today, your business, compliance, regulations, more and more disclosures, all your benefits, everything's changing. It's consistently being updated. You have more regulations to do. You have more items on your desk. What does not change simply is the fact that there's still 24 hours in a day, 365 days a year. Yet we're being asked to wear more hats at our organizations, cut costs, do things we can to improve and streamline services. That's a challenge. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen people struggle with everything to take care of it. A lot of times you see a simple enrollment get missed. 10, 15 people, we had our HR person change out in the middle of enrollment, and the 401k enrollment forms didn't get to these 20 people. Okay? Technically, there's an accountability to that. There's a liability. There's a financial liability where the company has to go back in and make up those missed contributions. So it's little things like that that really plague most retirement plans. If you don't want to do it, get rid of it. More advisors are being considered fiduciaries. This is a personal one for me. Our industry has really struggled on who they want to be when they grow up. In my opinion, it's a black and white. There's no gray area here. You're either a fiduciary or you're not. And if you're not willing to accept a fiduciary liability to your client, you should get out of the business. It's clear and simple. You are paying somebody to help you manage the retirement plan that you have a personal liability for. If they don't have skin in the game, they should not be involved. The problem, though, is that with fewer advisors, it does make it difficult for firms like ours to work with lots of companies. So I add a caveat. The top 3 trends I showed you. I'd say if this presentation was the top 4 trends, this is number 4. And its pooled employer plans are set to dominate the marketplace for the small 401k marketplace. And by definition, small 401k plans, anything under 15 million. That's really the small market. Micro market, under $1 million, but the small market plans under $15 million. Mid markets, 15 million to about 100 million. Large markets, anything over $100 million. So just from a preference standpoint of where I'm going with this, pooled employer plans are really designed to help achieve some type of a reduction, whether in administration, investment costs, total plan costs. These can be association plans. These could be multiple employer plans, or commonly known as MEPs. What they're really trying to accomplish is by grouping other assets, other companies together, can we find some commonality and streamline or create efficiencies in the marketplace? And to me, for small companies, if I have 5 plans out here that are $2 million, $10 million, $5 million, they're all running about the same. And what I've seen is by bringing them underneath some type of an umbrella, normally, when done right, they can see some type of an efficiency, some type of a cost reduction. We have designed our own. Whoops, went a little too fast there. We've designed our own called the MARC program. It does utilize the ERISA 338 investment manager, removing the investment selection and monitoring from the plan sponsors plate. It does utilize a 316 administrator as an optional service if qualified for, but really just to take away all the administration tasks off your plate. And it has consistently showed to reduce costs, which will help your employees retire on time. How that looks, here's some examples. A $5 million plan with 200 employees, their current total plan cost at the time was 1.32, which that's pretty good, not gonna lie. At the end of the day though, when we moved them over to our MARC program, their costs were just underneath 1%. It's about a $17,000 a year savings every year going forward from what they were paying. An $11 million plan dropped down from 88 basis points, 0.88 to 0.75. Again, some of these are small, but the dollar amount's real. That is money going back into participants' accounts. That's helping them save more. The $1 million example there, line 3, This one I've seen more and more here lately. Smaller plans that simply weren't paying attention. The fees were at 2.23, dropped all the way down to 1.2. That's almost a 50% reduction for just 15 employees. That's a lot of money going back into their accounts going forward. So as I look at the top trends, outsourcing administration, using collective investment trusts, which our MARC program does, and really focus on the financial wellness component, oftentimes is, well, does it work? I think what our experience now has been over the last couple of years that we've had this program up and running, we've seen it is working, and it's working really well, actually. So the top 3 things that you can focus on for 2019 as I wrap this up. If I haven't said it enough, I see more issues with plans when it comes to the administration than anything else. Yes, I've seen bad investment lineups that can be fixed pretty quickly, but I've also seen items or issues where the administration was terrible, and we're going back years to collect the correct documents. So this one, if you don't want to be the administrator, and by all intents and purposes probably shouldn't be one, outsource it if it's cost efficient. Just make sure you know what you're buying, because there are multiple programs out there that look and sound the same. Make sure you know what you're buying. Number 2, utilize the collective investment trust if you can to lower the investment costs. This is a simple, easy way to just lower the actual investment management cost. If you have access to it, great. I will say not every advisor is the same. Not every advisor can just walk out there and say, well, I want this collective investment trust. Oftentimes it's through an affiliation or based upon their size of what they can accomplish. Finally, research and implement a financial wellness program. The benefits will play out. We have seen this now at Marcotte. We have seen it for our own clients, that when you engage employees at their level and you help them understand how to manage their finances, and by putting a plan in place, they will have a choice whether or not they want to retire. You have an engaged workforce at that point. You have people willing to come to work for you, knowing that one of their biggest fears, the biggest stress levels, is taken care of. This is something you do not accomplish in a single meeting. Wellness programs go above and beyond just group 401k meetings, group retirement plan meetings. It's all encompassing and it's ongoing. The best programs do provide the results, but it has to take a commitment from management and an understanding of how this will impact your business, more importantly, your bottom line over time. So those are the top 3 things I see for 2019. Again, thank you for your time. If you have questions, our email address was on the beginning pages. Reach out to us at any point in time. We'd love to stay in contact with everyone. But with that, enjoy the rest of your day and hope to talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.